Hello and welcome to MedEvidence Articles, where we encourage community, research, and education with weekly articles. I'm your guest host, Brennan McDonough, and this week we're talking about the FDA's push toward real-time clinical trials and what that could mean for the pace, quality, and oversight of bringing new treatments to patients. Can clinical trials rise faster without losing their flavor? My good friend is just getting into baking sourdough bread. She's having a tough time with the time commitment, which may seem odd since the actual time spent interacting with the dough is only around 30 minutes spread over a couple of days. The lion's share of the time is spent idling, waiting around for the dough to build protein networks and rise without going too far and deflating. Her time commitment is that even if she isn't actively working the dough, she still has to be aware of what's going on and is dependent on things largely out of her control. This echoes some parts of the clinical trials process. The sourdough baking process includes prepping the starter, mixing, kneading, shaping, optional second shaping, and baking. Clinical trials have a similarly stepwise process. Preclinical research, Phase 1 safety and dosage, Phase 2 effectiveness, Phase 3 confirmation in a larger population, regulatory approval, Phase 4 long-term effectiveness and safety. Each of these phases requires approval, oversight, data cleaning and handling, and a lot of paperwork. Overall, it takes an average of 10 to 12 years for most drugs to go from concept to market, with around 8 years spent in clinical trials. On April 29, 2026, the US FDA announced a pilot program currently underway for real-time clinical trials. The real-time part of this is that the clinical trial sites involved in this pilot program send data to the FDA as it comes in. The idea is that this will allow FDA reviewers to see safety signals in data in real time, streamlining the process and hopefully getting drugs to market more quickly. One major stated goal is to reduce dead time between clinical trial phases when no clinical trial is underway. The director of the FDA states that up to 45% of the 10 to 12 year period is time when no clinical trial is actively collecting data, and that this pilot program is designed to punch down that time. This may not seem as effective as the FDA hopes, however, as some of the dead time they are hoping to cut is actually spent ensuring data quality and proper safety oversight. Think of it like baking the sourdough. My friend doesn't actually have a problem with the 30-ish minutes spent measuring, mixing, and kneading dough, but instead has issues with the 24-plus hours of rising time between steps. This rise time is what makes sourdough have its signature flavor and characteristics. If you add instant yeast to the dough, it will rise much faster, but it won't really be sourdough anymore. This pilot program may help in some cases where time is of the essence, such as with a new pandemic. In fact, the FDA director used a theoretical pandemic as one of the example cases for implementing real-time clinical trials, which is undermined because in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, vaccines were fast-tracked and approved in under a year. It is clear that regulatory hurdles can be overcome in times of need, but it is less clear that real-time clinical trials, or the future proposed AI approval process, are the best methods to speed this process up while retaining high-quality data and making sure patient safety is the primary focus. If real-time clinical trials can achieve faster results without sacrificing safety and quality, it would be a real benefit to patients waiting for investigational medications. Hopefully, we can find a way to bake a flavorful, well-risen loaf without too much frustrating wait time.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of MedEvidence Articles. If you'd like to know more, all of our sources are linked in the podcast description. You can also visit our website at medevidence.com and check out the MedEvidence podcast for discussions between physicians and subject matter experts. MedEvidence provides evidence-based information that empowers individuals to make informed health decisions. The organization stands apart in the presentation of unbiased clinical research in clear, accessible formats guided by medical experts. MedEvidence provides education for patients and healthcare professionals with a focus on research as a care option. Note that information provided in this podcast is for general educational, scientific, and informational purposes only and is not intended as and should not be treated as medical or other professional advice for any particular individual or individuals. If you are experiencing any medical issue or have any medical concerns, you should consult with a doctor or other medical professional. My name is Benton, and we'll catch you next week.